What seems like a great idea on paper can fall to pieces in the ring. From poorly received promos to disastrous matches to feuds that went too far, wrestlers wish they could take these stories back. In the build-up to AEW Double or Nothing 2021, Cody Rhodes' feud with Anthony Ogogo was built as a clash of nations between USA and the UK. Rhodes temporarily took on his dad's moniker, the American Dream. In doing so, Cody cut a heartfelt promo on Dynamite. He got emotional as he talked about his biracial daughter and his love for the United States. The promo was panned by fans and critics alike, with many calling it tone deaf. Rhodes' intentions were seemingly innocent, but the nationalistic vibes of the promo came off as very antiquated. In an interview with Barstool Sports Wrestling, Cody admitted he regrets the promo. He said,
"I can, on record, just go ahead and say I regret that and almost everything about the Anthony Ogogo angle. Almost everything about it."
While Cody Rhodes still stands by what he said in the promo, he sees that it probably wasn't the best of ideas. He added, "I stood by it because I thought the content was good and I thought the intentions were good. However, a white guy talking about race relations who has an American flag tattoo on his neck, I can see why people would use the terms tone deaf when it came to that." Shawn Michaels had one of the best retirements in wrestling history. Coming off a legendary feud with The Undertaker, Michaels hung up his boots in the main event of WrestleMania 26. It was a perfect send-off. In the years since, when questioned if he would ever come out of retirement, Michaels mocked the very idea of ever wrestling again. But in the build-up to Crown Jewel 2018, WWE announced that Shawn Michaels would indeed come out of retirement, teaming with Triple H to take on the Brothers of Destruction in Saudi Arabia. The match was a disaster on all fronts. Triple H was injured very early on, leading to the whole thing breaking down. In an interview with the New York Post, Michaels was asked if he regrets coming out of retirement for the match at Crown Jewel. Michaels said, using The Undertaker's real name, "I do. I had no idea that from Mark's standpoint, he was looking at it as that might be one he could walk away on." In the Last Ride documentary series, Undertaker admitted he would have ended his career with that match had it been good enough. In response, Michaels said, "That's something that I think to myself now, oh my goodness, I wish that I had have known that." One of WWE's most personal and controversial storylines happened in 2005. Lita, who had been dating Matt Hardy for a number of years at that point, was having a real-life affair with Edge. WWE would use this genuine drama to begin a long-term feud between Edge and Matt, with Lita stuck in the middle. The chemistry between Edge and Lita was electric, and the storyline undoubtedly made Edge a main event superstar. Lita has since admitted the love triangle storyline was not easy on her. She even considered quitting WWE altogether just a month into the feud. On the podcast, The Sessions with Renee Paquette, Lita said, "I'll tell you, it was not easy. I almost quit a month into the whole love triangle. At that point, not only was it so hard, it was also out of shame. I was just like, I deserve all of these terrible things that everybody is saying to me."
I felt very alone and isolated and just was in a really bad place.
At Super Showdown 2019 in Saudi Arabia, The Undertaker faced Goldberg in what was billed as a dream match. Goldberg got knocked out early into the match, and the entire 9-minute contest was full of mistimed spots and ugly botches. Undertaker was visibly annoyed after he got the pinfall victory, and the promised dream match has become considered one of the worst main event matches in recent history. On his The Last Ride documentary series, The Undertaker said the match with Goldberg was really close to being catastrophic, as both men seemed to come very close to injuring themselves. Undertaker even admitted his back was jacked up after the match. Undertaker's wife, Michelle McCool, added, "It was a train wreck. It was not anything he wanted. It was not anything I'm sure Goldberg wanted, or the fans wanted." John Cena's feud with The Rock was built on the two men's real-life animosity. In the build-up to WrestleMania 28, Cena insulted The Rock for leaving WWE for Hollywood, implying The Rock didn't love WWE as much as he did. Cena repeatedly said he would never do what The Rock did. Years later, of course, John Cena would leave WWE for Hollywood. Cena admitted he was wrong to call The Rock a sellout for leaving WWE for Tinseltown, adding, "It was stupid of me. It genuinely was. That was my perspective at the time. For me to not be able to see Dwayne's vision of what he wanted to do personally and how his personal success could affect a growing global brand, that was just ignorant on my part." Hulk Hogan's legendary in-ring career came to an end at TNA Bound for Glory 2011, where he squared off against longtime rival Sting in a match that was very well received. Hogan's face turn at the end of the match was a genuinely great moment, receiving a huge reaction from the fans. Hogan showed that after all these years, he still had the crowd in the palm of his hand. It probably wasn't the retirement match he envisioned, but it definitely could have been a lot worse. Nevertheless, Hogan seems displeased with the idea of this being his last ever match. In a 2019 interview with the Los Angeles Times, Hogan was asked if he would ever wrestle again. He replied he'd go back to what was then Vince McMahon's WWE for sure. Hogan said, "I talked to Vince and I said, I really don't know if I could live with myself knowing my last match was at TNA. If I can get fixed, I pray I can have one more match." Hulk Hogan wasn't the only one who regretted working for TNA. The 16-time world champion Ric Flair would offer similar sentiments. Flair worked in TNA for over 3 years, signing with the company on the infamous January 4th, 2010 episode of Impact. Despite having a grand and emotional retirement from WWE in 2008, Ric Flair would go on to wrestle 11 more matches in TNA, with some fans saying Flair tarnished his perfect goodbye. Flair would have some interesting storylines in TNA, including his partnership with AJ Styles, his part in the factions Fortune and Immortal, and his feuds with Mick Foley, Sting, and Hulk Hogan. Speaking on his podcast, The Ric Flair Show, Flair said,
"There's a couple things I regret. Number one was ever going to work for TNA.
He added, "That's my own fault. It was just a lot of money to wrestle 65 days a year, right? 65 days and make a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? Not WWE money, but pretty good money to do nothing." In the build-up to WrestleMania 25, Matt Hardy turned on his brother Jeff to instigate a very intense and personal rivalry. In the feud, Matt implied that he was responsible for a number of misfortunes in Jeff Hardy's life, including backstage attacks, a car accident, and a pyro malfunction. Around this time, Jeff faced a real-life tragedy. His family home burned down and he lost everything inside. Jeff's dog Jack died in the fire. WWE used this real-life tragedy to put heat on the Hardys' blood feud. In a promo on SmackDown, Matt implied he was the one who burned down Jeff's house and killed his dog. Matt Hardy has since revealed on his podcast, The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, that he was very uncomfortable with this story direction. He said, "It was a really traumatic event for him. Just for them to put that in our storyline was almost like it was in bad taste. I'll never forget them burning a dog collar and then I held the dog collar." One of the highest rated moments in Raw history was a promo segment with Mick Foley and The Rock. Mick Foley celebrated The Rock with "This Is Your Life," bringing out a number of people from The Rock's past to honor the great one himself. The comedic segment became known as one of the greatest ever Raw moments. Years later, when Mick Foley was making his return to WWE after a 3-year absence, WWE tried to recreate that magic. In 2011, during the John Cena vs. The Rock feud, Mick Foley presented "This Is Your Life, John Cena," and brought out faces from John Cena's past. The segment was panned, and even Cena could be seen visibly cringing. On Facebook, Mick Foley said the segment was one of the biggest regrets he had in his entire career. Foley wrote, "I absolutely knew that there was no way in my first appearance on WWE TV in 3 years that I should have agreed to be part of This Is Your Life, John Cena. Every bone in my body told me that being part of it was a bad idea. But after 3 years away, I didn't want to rock the boat." Kurt Angle's last run wrestling in WWE was not the epic return many fans were hoping for, and it seems it wasn't the return Kurt Angle was hoping for either. Angle admitted he wasn't in the shape he wanted to be at that time, and he wasn't happy with his performances. So Angle chose to retire at WrestleMania 35. In an interview with Denise Salcedo of Instinct Culture, Kurt Angle said he was less than thrilled when Vince McMahon offered up his opponent for his retirement match. Angle said,
He said, "Well, you're going to wrestle Baron Corbin because you've had a program with him for the last 7 months."
This was far from the epic retirement match Kurt Angle was hoping for. When Angle suggested John Cena for his last match, McMahon turned him down. Angle explained, "I said, Vince, I want to retire. Baron is a great talent, but he's an upcoming talent. How about John Cena?" He said, "If you want John Cena, next year you got him. But this year, you get Baron." I said, "Vince, I'm not going next year. I'm done. This is it." He said, "Well, you're stuck with this." Zack Ryder's Z True Long Island story revolutionized the way social media was used in WWE storylines. Before the YouTube show, social media was almost never brought up on WWE TV. When WWE saw how well Z True Long Island story was engaging an online fan base, however, WWE went all in on integrating social media into their storylines, something they still do to this day. Ryder, however, regrets that he didn't end Z True Long Island story sooner. The show ran for 100 episodes, though Ryder wishes he'd ended it after episode 50, claiming WWE took over the show and started making changes. Speaking on Busted Open Radio, Ryder said, "After I became the US champion, WWE came to me and said, we want to move this to our YouTube channel. I was really hesitant to do it, and I should have said no. That was the end of the Z-True Long Island story, in my opinion, right there. WWE was editing it and taking things out, even though they said they weren't going to touch it. Then it just became a job and not fun. For the most part, the last 50 were horrible, but the first 50 changed the business.